How to be more empathetic with yourself during difficult situations. Before we start, you will need a pen and paper, as well as the needs and feelings sheets that you can download through the link in the caption. Pause the video if you need, okay? People can hurt us intentionally or unintentionally. Often you will hear, do not take it personally. That's great in theory, but it's often too late because you are already hurt. Unfortunately, there is a tendency to verbally attack the person that hurts you, and in doing so, you probably hope that the other person will finally get it and that they will know how they made you feel. Sorry, it never works that way. When attacking another person, they will never hear your pain. They will only feel their own and lick their own wounds. Blaming them for hurting you will only make them defend themselves. So what can you do to change that pattern? You can choose to listen to others, which what we call in nonviolent communication, giraffe ears. Here they are, and that means that we focus on empathy and clear observation instead of making judgments. Not easy. Focusing on ourselves and being empathetic with ourselves is a great way to break the circle and the cycle of continuous conflict and hurt. For example, when you're upset about something and somebody responds with, I don't want to talk about it, there is a good chance that you will feel dismissed, ignored, or lonely. The I don't want to talk about it response is what we call in NVC the jackal's language, because it is disconnecting us from each other. Check in with yourself now. When you hear that type of response, where do you feel it in your body? The giraffe language stands for flow and connection. And the jackal's language represents stagnation and alienation. Remember the sentence, I don't want to talk about it. The giraffe doesn't hear. They hear, hey, he or she is not willing, but hears what need or needs keeps them from willing. Totally different approach. When you recognize the need behind the no or the need behind the criticism, you immediately become able to start stepping away from the vicious cycle of feeling hurt. If you would like to communicate with more empathy and avoiding judgment, if you want to find out more about what's alive in yourself and other people, or if you close off when you hear upsetting comments, then here's a great exercise for you. It will definitely be helpful for getting to know yourself and others better. The first step to awareness and empathy is living in the now, not the past or future. Focus on what's alive in yourself without jumping into judgment or self-criticism. Often we are so good at being critical of ourselves. Just feel what's going inside of you. Here's an example of the exercise. If someone says to you, the problem with you is that you are too sensitive, and sensitive people do get told that a lot, well, that judgment about being sensitive might have affected your feelings of safety or harmony. Check now your feeling sheet, if you recognize that. In order to feel safe, you might have refrained from expressing yourself totally. You might have kept telling yourself, what would they say if I expressed myself so honestly? So now we can ask, what was the stimulus that prompted that person to talk to you like that? What needs are not being met within this other person that allow them to feel this was an appropriate comment? For the purpose of this practice, look through the needs sheet, guess a few needs that possibly were unmet, and they would have said to you, the problem is you are too sensitive. Here are a few suggestions. I have a few for you. Look at your sheet. The need for clarity, for understanding, for dignity, for harmony, etc. They were validated. Now for you, if someone said the problem with you is that you are too sensitive, the need that may have triggered our needs for respect, acceptance, appreciation, care, validation, compassion, sensitivity, peace, and possibly several more. Of course, in daily life, you are not going to speak about your needs all the time. But it is important to know what they are and how they affect you when you are communicating with others. For a real understanding of the communication processes, it is an extremely helpful insight that will create more understanding and connection. This understanding of our needs and those of the other person is the crucial difference with the way so many people typically communicate and why communication can be so stressful. But it doesn't have to be. We can now try to connect with the other person to the why of their response to us and ours to them. Not to assign blame, but cultivate understanding. Going back to the example, the problem with you is that you are too sensitive. That could have been the result of what you had said prior, that you started to justify what you had said. You might even have agreed to be too sensitive in order to maintain the peace between the two of you. It could also be that at that moment, that person was actually feeling frustrated because their need for understanding wasn't being met in the conversation. You see, it can be much more complicated than we actually thought it was. But we can try to simplify it. It may sound like that it takes up too much time during discussions to think about all this, but by making small changes and practicing them, it becomes a second nature. So now, take your pen and paper and find a thought or phrase that you typically keep for yourself and that you actually might like to share. One that you presume people might not respond to in the way you would be comfortable with. Specifically, a sentence that you normally would be a little afraid to express. Something you won't tell easily at all. Pause the video to do this. And now make a list of why am I afraid to express that thought or those thoughts. You may start with an example like, because of the responses I expect to get. Now add a few more reasons. When you look a little closer at your phrases, what is it that you discover? Are you afraid that you will feel ridiculed, vulnerable, uncomfortable? It is important to identify those feelings. Now look at the needs sheet and identify which of your needs are not being met, such as the need to be understood, to be heard, to be respected, acknowledged, etc. Write them down. What feelings do you sense because those needs are not met? Write them down too, and of course you need to pause the video. Let's go back and look at the thought that you were avoiding to share. Now sense and guess what the person you'd like to address it to might be feeling and needing if they actually respond to the way you fear they might. Again, go over the sheet with the feelings and especially the needs and guess what they could be. Do this without being judgmental. If you practice this exercise a few times, first in writing, then in conversations, you will see how much fun it is to see the difference in how you feel. If someone yells at you, instead of getting upset, you focus on what they are needing now. You can ask them and more than likely they will feel heard right away and be able to converse normally. Of course, you must focus inwardly too. Although you can't go around telling everybody what you need all the time, it is important to ask for what you need as well. If you'd like to learn more about that process, watch my next video. You probably will experience that everyone's need for appreciation and respect are super common ones, and that those touch us deeply when they are not met. The pain around respect often stems from childhood wounds and scars. So that becomes an additional valid and important reason to work on healing ourselves. You'll also see that you will no longer be afraid of what people might say to you. You won't take it in the same way. Conversations transform when you focus on learning to hear the feelings and needs behind a phrase or message. Eventually, you won't have to guess. You will be able to ask. Imagine you will no longer need to worry what people say or how you respond. You will be prepared to empathically connect with whatever comes your way. That means you will take your power into your own hands. You will also take self-validation and security in your own hands. You will no longer have to worry what other people think or say about you. That doesn't mean you'll never get hurt or angry, but you will know where it is coming from and be better prepared to deal with it quickly. This is how you can be more empathetic to yourself and others. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, make sure you click the subscribe button and hit the bell to get notified for new videos. Any link that I mentioned in this video, you can find in the description box below.